Morning everybody and welcome back to Plan a Craft. Oh, excuse me, I'm pressing buttons. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Don't forget to say hi and let me know if you have any questions along the way. I will try and go fairly slow today, but I'm aware that I don't want to cross with Pete at 12:30, so we're going to try and get sorted as quickly as possible. Now, today you are going to be working on a document that is A4 size. Okay, so we're going to start a new document. I just want A4 and we'll go portrait. Hang on, okay. I can wait. Morning everybody and welcome back to Plan a Craft portrait. Excuse that.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that.
Okay. So starting with a new document, and this is going to be what we're going to create our file in. Now the reason we're going to A4 is we go to our lowest common denominator between your printer and your scanning cut. So if you're lucky enough to have an A3 printer, you can go for a 12 by 12 or even a 12 by 16, is it, off the top of my head, roughly, A3? Roughly. But as most of us will have A4 printers at home, I thought it was best that we do an A4. Okay. And what we're going to do is probably going to need more than one A4 page. So we're going to tick the box that says create artboard. Margins we'll ignore. Bleed we'll ignore. Okay. Now if you're setting this up to go to a professional printer, which you might do at some point in the future, speak to them first about the colour profile that they are using and set it up right from the get-go if possible. You can convert later on, but conversion doesn't always give you the best results. If you do have any questions about colour profiles and calibrating your monitor and things like that, do a private message after the stream and I will talk you through it. That's a definite talk to me. Okay, so we can create this and we have our new document. And what I'm going to do before I go too far is I'm going to insert
Morning, Chris.
another 2 artboards.
Do you want me to say hello?
Hi Mum! Hope you're okay. Be calmer now. Okay, so you'll see in our layers we now have 3 artboards, and just for now I'm going to knock 2 out, so we're just concentrating on just the one. And we can even lock them so we don't accidentally put stuff in them. So when I'm doing a print and cut file, the way around that I usually do it is I will create the cut file layer first and then you work to do your print layer after. Okay, so for each artboard you're going to essentially end up with 2 layers, the cut layer and the print layer. So I'm going to start with a new layer, and you'll find that as you start to bring in new bits and pieces you'll end up rejigging these, but it's fine. So we can call it cut layer. Print layer. Now you need a 3rd layer that you will use for both sets of layers. So these are your registration marks. So if you've watched our multicolour vinyl video, you're sort of starting to get the drift of why we use registration marks. But the ones that we use for print and cut are slightly different. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so hopefully you've got your first page with your 3 layers. So I'm going to click on my cut layer and right, let's think. First of all, we're going to want to form the base of our box. So as I'm going to do a cupcake box, what I'm going to do is actually design the insert and the base to go on one page. And this is a nice easy way of duplicating shapes easily. So what I want is a length that is 16 centimeters, so 160 millimeters, and the height is going to be, we can leave it 80 actually, but you want to make it nice and round. Okay, so far so good. And because that's also going to be our base, we can duplicate that shape. So what I did was press Alt and drag to get a duplicate.
Whirring.
Whirring? That's odd.
I've got no lag on mine, Chris. I'm watching it live as well, there's no lag.
Is anybody else having problems? I noticed a couple of people on Barbara's stream were having delays, but it was fine my end, so. I would say it's internet service provider, but Mum's on the same that we are. Okay, well we'll see how it goes. So I know the diameter of a cupcake is 76 millimeters at its widest point. So I want to make sure that in my box I have room for 2.
Turbulent Thursday. Morning, Sarah Lou.
So I'm just going to put a stroke on this just so we can see it, and I'll put a dash one so you know it's a rough guide.
Let me just turn the sound up a little bit just in case it's a sound issue.
Okay. Just make that gap a bit bigger so it's a bit more obvious. Sounds a bit tinny. Is anybody else hearing it sounding a bit tinny? Because if so, we may have to reboot or something.
Sounds right to me.
Oh, okay. Sounded tinny from over here. Okay, so this is roughly where our 2 cupcakes are going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build another circle. Oh, not that one. And it'll line to the middle. So as long as you see those 2 cross lines, you know you're lined up to the middle of your bigger circle. Okay, you can let go. I'm going to change that to a solid line because I want it to cut. Okay. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see a bit better. So we have our outside circle, inside circle, and then we're going to do some little snips. So I'm going to go click off. We're going to do the same just there. And we can press and hold shift so we can strain it to an angle. So this one's coming out at 45. again to bring it out to the 90. Okay. Yeah? Sure.
Don't forget, if you do have any questions, do put them in the comments. I am here monitoring the comments. So give us a hi when you do come in, just so we know that you're there.
Okay, so at the moment, if we were to cut that, it's going to cut round our circle, and it's going to do the little lines that go up to it. So far, so good. Now what I'm going to do is up here, again, I'm going to press shift, and I'm going to create another little circle. Now it's going to cut a little finger hole for us to get our cake out with. You want to get it so that your circle sits more or less on the line. Okay, and we can go back in here. Select our point, press and hold Alt, and drag across another copy. And again, make sure that you get your green and your red lines, and you know that everything's where it should be. Okay, so far so good? So if you want to just say, yep, I'm okay, so we know. So what I'm going to do is just track those, and I'm going to do it the wrong way around, just because.
When you're doing things like subtract, does it, I take it matters which way around you select the item?
No, it depends on what's on top. So at the moment we have our circles on top and our rectangles underneath. So it knows to take the topmost item away from the underneath. Okay.
I think that's just me. Asking the silly questions that nobody else has already done.
And finally we have our two outside circles that just mark roughly where our cake's going to come. Now at this point you don't have to keep them, so the choice is yours. If they're in your way, just delete them out. Okay. So next we want to put in some tabs so that our insert actually sits inside our box, but not right at the bottom. So to do that, just going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to have it about, let's have a look. Yeah, go 2 centimetres high, so 20 mil. I have got a ruler to the side of me, so if that is something you need to grab, just go and get them. You'll note that at the moment with my solid pieces I'm not putting a stroke on them yet. That's because we'll go around and sort out the cut line right at the end. There is method in my madness. Okay, then we're going to go to our corner rounder tool, and to make our life easier we're going to round these corners. Okay, so you should have 2 round corners and 2 straight corners, and now my computer's going to go a bit laggy in a bit. Okay. So I'm just going to do a 180. So just hold shift. And then this next step is option depending on if you have room on your paper or not. So just to give my insert a bit more support, I'm going to do another tab at each end. Okay, so I'm going to line this up with my rectangle. I'm going to press A to go to my node tool. I'm going to select my two bottom nodes while holding shift. Then I'm going to keep shift pressed, and I can then either use the keyboard or I can drag. And by keeping hold of shift, we can make sure that it constrains it to a straight line. So far so good. You can tell me to slow down if you need to. Okay, and same again, we'll do a 180. Stick it on the end. Okay, so that's our insert more or less done. And we'll come back in a minute and do all our cut lines at once. Okay. Our base, we're going to do quite simply as a rectangle. So, onto our next artboard. We're going to unlock them. Click on our artboard so it's blue and go to our new layer button, which is just down here. And again, you want the same 3-layer setup, so registration, print, so next what I'll do is we're going to do the sides of our box. So you want to try and do it from your most complicated layer down to your easiest. It just makes your life a little bit easier. Okay. Now, remember how we haven't done any welding yet? This is why. So we can bring it across a copy of our base plate. We can rotate it because we're going to do a side. So this is our side dimensions, and we can decide on how high we want our box. Now I'm going to do my box so it is 9 centimeters high at its widest point. Okay, and then I want to do another box. It's just going to come to about there. And there is a reason why we've done it in 2 separate boxes. Okay? So, the advantage of doing it in 2 separate boxes is we can then use our pen tool to start developing our folds. So if we know we want something to fold in a certain way, we can do it straight onto our base piece without having to do our weld just yet.
Your pen is there too.
Your
pen's there if you want to use the tablet.
No, it's okay. It's okay for this. I'm just doing a click and a point, so it's fine for mouse. Okay. I will get into using the graphics tablet at some point and how to use it.
Editors, hi, I'm just watching right now. We'll complete later.
Okay. I'm just going to put a dash line on it. And you want to be thinking when you're doing this is, which way do I want this to fold? Okay. So I'm thinking actually I'm going to turn that up the other way and do it the different fold, do it that way. Okay, so we've gone from the lowest point, highest, middle, and back down low. And then there will be a little score line that goes across there in a bit, but at this point, don't need it. And we can go back to this one again, and we'll do our front section. So we know that we want our front section to be the same height as our side section, otherwise that's going to look a bit weird. So if we can actually drag it so that we have our green and red line. So the red line extends across your old shape. Okay. And keeping it in the middle will help you. So far so good. We can then pinch this shape from up here, so we're repeating the shape rather than having to create from scratch. Now I'm going to stick this on top of our top, and that's going to be where we actually close our box. Okay, is everybody okay so far? So next I want to go to my pie tool. I'm going to press and hold shift and just draw. Okay. And I want it as a half circle, so I'm going to take my red dot and it goes to a little, come on, let me get to it. Can do it that way, okay, just be awkward. Okay, so you want to make sure that again you're aligning it to your box so it's in the middle. If you do that and it's slightly above, it won't matter. And we're going to subtract the two, giving you a nice little opening for your handle. Okay. And at this point, if you wanted to, you can always tweak it.
Don't forget to save.
Yes, don't forget to save it at regular intervals. So, did you start a folder for this one?
I did. Should be called, on your desktop, called Cupcake.
Okay. Okay.
Put it.
Print and cut. And of course we will then want to do glue tabs. And the quick way of doing that is just to flip it. Again, don't worry about the fact that you've got a dash line on there at the minute, it's not important. So, let me delete that and I'll just copy this one down here just for ease. So, what you can do, quick rotate, line up to the bottom of your box, I'll just line up there, duplicate that one. And we can use our other flip, just to flip it to the other side. Okay, so you're going to need two of those and two of those. So, to make sure that we put a little glue tab just down on our bottom piece down here. And notice at the moment I'm making my glue tabs nice and big as well, so you've got a nice rigid box. Okay. Now if we do a line that goes across here, we know that our box is going to fold there, which means these tabs here aren't going to work exactly how we want them to. So the best way to handle that is I'm going to create a triangle. Okay. Doesn't have to be very accurate. At the end of the day, you'll never see it. Okay. And you're going to subtract your triangle away from your glue tab. Now you could insert a window and other things into this, but just for now, we'll just keep it as a nice card one, so it's nice and simple. Okay, so hopefully you're all alright. Any questions?
Nothing at the moment.
Nothing. Okay.
Not that I can see anyway.
I'm just going to shrink these up so I can do it one artboard at a time. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate my cut layer and just keep that as like a notes layer. And when I say notes, I don't mean I'm going to be putting text in it. What I mean is, when you come to do the print there, you're going to want to refer to some of the original shapes. If I keep those there, then I have a copy that I can go back to, so I don't have to worry about having to undo welding at any point. So hopefully that will make sense. And you just want to check that your shapes are accurately lined up. So if you see you've got like a double line there, just okay. That's better. Now hopefully it'll be well behaved and mild for me. But you never know because it's live. And there's always one that misbehaves. Okay. So this is actually quite a good example. So if you weld and you find you've got this going on, it's a bit of a random thing. Usually it means that your shapes are slightly off, but as we know that we did everything with the shift key, we know that they're not. So can you delete that? Okay. If you have a shape where you've totally misjoined a line, you can put a box over the top as a plaster and weld the two that way, and again then you can go back and just delete the offending nodes, and I'll do the same on this side. So new box, select the shape, weld, A for node tool, and delete and delete. Okay, we can then send that back to the back so that we see our other elements back on top.
Oh.
What?
She says, don't know what happened but completely lost you and only just up and running now.
Oh, that's a bit weird.
That's random because it's been perfect this end.
Okay, just let me know where you got to and I will try and quickly catch you back up. Okay, so while we're waiting, I'm just going to quickly pop in some score lines, and we want to turn our cut line into having a solid outer edge. Doesn't matter about the thickness because at the end of the day canvas nor the machine will actually give a Casimir 4X. And we'll take the fill out of the shape.
Monkeys.
When
is
it
the word you're
behaves.
looking for.
Okay, so with our notes layer, just going to hide that for a minute and just check it's the right one because it looks like it's the wrong one. Goodish. That's okay. The easy way to sort it at this point is we just make that one the cut layer. Sorry.
Did it on the wrong way.
Yeah, did it on the wrong layer because I'm a plonker.
You-
There we go.
Yeah, shows your humanity.
Yeah, we all make mistakes. Especially when you've had 2 days off. And yeah. I'm not doing bad considering. If I just turn that one off, you can see now that we have our cut layer. And we want to do the same for our base piece down here as well. So, no fill, solid stroke, and just apply a bit of line. And so far so good. Then you want to do that for the rest of your sheets. I'm gonna put these 2, 3, and oh, before I go too far, that hasn't put it in the right layer. Let me take that, pop that in there. Okay, so your layers should all be underneath your cut. Duplicate that, and so I have a notes layer. I'll hide it.
The thumbs up, so.
Okay. Weld it. I just want to send that back to the back. Okay, trying to think. So yeah, we're going to need to do a fold line across here as well. Just from when it all tucks in. Put a dash line on it. Okay, and again on our tab down here. Put a dash line on it. And our base shape, we need to put our cut line on and take a fill out. Finally, we have our lovely box front and back. So just keep this one nice and simple. We're going to keep it the same for both front and back, but if you wanted to, you could put in an extra aperture that you only cut from front pieces. But for now, we're just going to go and okay, let's go up here. Just realised I have forgotten to do my layers. Cut. Oh, can't type either. Cut.
What did you call it?
Want that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. And weld it. And again, we'll just have to patch it up. Weld. Weld. Okay, I'm going to take off the extra nodes that we don't need. So our scoreline curve at the moment we can bring right in. So there, now that we've used it as a guide. Likewise we need to do one across there, one down to there, and there, and there. Nice dashed line on it. Oh, and don't do that. Sometimes my mouse is a bit weird at the moment, isn't it, Ian? It likes to jump.
It does.
Okay, so we now have our cut lines to work with. And I'll just shrink those back up and go back to our first board again. Okay, this is when I'm going to start talking about bleeds. And what bleeds are there for is to actually help you have a bit of leeway when it comes to where you're going to cut. So this is where I'm going to bring my notes layer back in. And we don't need print on glue tabs, so we can just delete it out. Okay. However, this shape here we do need. So we can take up that shape and I can move it upwards into our print layer. Okay, so far so good. We can then apply a stroke on it, and we want to send that stroke to the outside. Okay, and in our stroke amount we're going to put 3 mil. Okay, now that 3 mil equates to your bleed. So you have 3 millimeters leeway in either direction, so positive and negative, for you to align your piece. If you think you need a bigger amount of leeway, then you make your stroke bigger. Okay. Then what you're going to do is, with your shape selected, you're going to go to Layer, Expand Stroke. So what that does is it takes that stroke that you've now put on the outside and makes it into its own shape. Okay. So then what you do is you weld your 2 shapes together. So that's your original shape and your outside stroke. Okay. So now you should have something that looks like little pinholes and a video cassette. For those of you that remember them. Now I feel old. Okay, so if we shrink this up now and put our print layer beneath our cut layer, you can now see how our shape lines up to our print. Thumbs up so far? I'll repeat that again. So, in our notes layer, I'll take all these out because I don't need them. Okay, so our rectangle, we're going to put into our print layer. We're going to apply a stroke, which is 3 mil. We're going to line it to the outside. We're going to go to Layer, Expand Stroke, and weld the 2 shapes together. Okay, and that's what I was expecting it to do. It was well behaved the first time, but I was expecting it to go wrong. Okay, so if you've done this and you find that it's done, if I take the cut layer out so you can see that better, a weird double line here. Number 1, don't panic. Number 2, go to your node tool and just delete the offending nodes. Okay. So you should now end up with, let me just pop that in there properly. Thank you. And we can delete our notes layer because we finished that layout. So we've now ended up with a lovely print shape to go with our cut layer. Now, each of these we can colour according to our design. So what I will do in a minute is I'll bring in a logo and show you how to use the eyedropper tool and things like that. Okay. So far so good. Okay. So with our cut layer and our notes layer, I'm just going to turn our notes layer back on. And again, we can take out our elements that we know we don't need. We can merge the ones that we do. We can apply our 3mm stroke. We can send it to the outside. We can expand our stroke. Weld the two together. And then we're going to put that in our print layer. Okay. And finally, for this one, I'm going to do it slightly differently. Okay. And we have our 3mm stroke already there and it's on the outside. We can expand our stroke and we'll weld the two together when it does it in the right place. Come on, let me get to the two. Try that again. So, I'm going to draw my box. And let's give it a fill just so it's a bit easy to see. There we go, that's what I need. And the stroke. Select the two. Weld. Start a new layer because we haven't got a print one set up. Pop our print shape into our print layer. And pop the print layer to the back. So far so good. And at this point, do another save. Okay. So, we're going to go to our import an image, which is the little picture on the left hand side of the screen. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's probably a bit tiny. And it will come up with a dialog box. So we can click on the company logo or your illustration, whichever you got from the little requirements list. And we can open it. Now when you bring it in, it won't place it straight away. So it comes up with your little image placement tool. And what that basically does is you click and drag to the size that you want your file to be. Okay. So we can pop it in the middle. And we can even bring it down to about there.
Can you still resize it once you've brought it in? So
Yep, you can resize it if you wanted to do, like, for instance, if you wanted to put another copy up here and you wanted to shrink it down. So if you had a little smaller logo up on top, you can do. Okay. So with our, and you want to make sure it's going into the right there. So there we go. And I'll just lock for now the cut there just to make our life a little bit easier. Okay, so hopefully you've got your image in. And Ian has very helpfully given me a little bit of text to put in. So I'm going to start off by using the ellipse tool. And I want to do a circle around. Now at this point, don't worry too much about the fact it's got this massive line around it, but just to make it easy for you to see, I'll take it out. And I'll zoom right in. I'm going to go to my text tool, and you'll notice that when I come up to a path, it goes to a little T with a waggly line underneath. Okay, and you click it, and it's going to come up with a green point and red point. And we're going to type Daisy's Cakery. And I hope that's spelled right. And I'm going to choose, let's see, because we're printing it, we don't have to be so fussy over our fonts, so we can literally pick whatever looks good. It's one of the reasons why I do like print and cut. Okay, with your text still selected, you're going to click on the black square. You're going to click and drag your little eyedropper into your logo, and you can select a colour, and if you click that, it then applies it to your text. And we can also make our text bigger. And then if we take this little green arrow, and if you find it you have some weird bits like that, we can sort that out after. So what I will do is just for now let me naughty, come on. As we get to the text. It misbehave on you now, just because it can. Just going to put it in the wrong place. Thank you. Silly thing. There we go. So I'm just going to take that apostrophe out, because we can always fake an apostrophe. And then get back to our text tool and just adjust our layout slightly so that we end up with a design that looks balanced. Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. I'm going to go for down here, baked with love. And I want it light in the middle. And in a minute when we move it, it will help. Going to do it slightly bigger, and I'm going to go for a different font for this bit, and I want something that's a bit more like that. And just because there we go. And then when we align it, we have our line to centre. And again we can change the text if we want to. So we can go into our dark blue colour and apply that to the text. So far so good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now if you wanted to, you could create a stripe that would go into this using the bitmap fill function, but I think that may be a little bit advanced for the time that we have. So what I'm going to do instead is we can use the gradient tool. So if you click on your fill tool over here, or press G, go up to the top, and we can go, let's say radial. Okay, and at this point I'm going to go white, and I'm going to bring it down to the centre of our cake, and at this point I'm going to go white too, and I'm just going to move it out just a little bit, just so we take our edges off our logo. So if somebody gives you a logo with white background and they say there's absolutely no way that they can give you one without a white background, this is a way around it. Okay, and the outside dot, we can go to our red. Whoa, blue, that's better. Or we can go into our cakey colour and apply that instead. That's a lovely sunny colour, so I think I'm going to go with that one.
I like the red.
You like the red? In your face!
Rememberable.
The one thing to bear in mind is the colours that you see on screen will not necessarily replicate exactly to the colour on your printer. So when I was saying about calibration of your screen, that's when you're going to see it the most. So if something looks really bright, don't necessarily expect it to come out the same way. So now you're like, well yeah, that looks lovely just down here, but what on earth up here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another circle, and you'll be glad to know I'm not going to use a radial fill on that. I'm going to make it just white, and we're going to pop it behind, and we're going to remove the stroke as well. Then we're going to use our little transparency tool, and then do a radial one, and we're going to extend it that way, and just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to extend it a bit bigger. And here, come on, no. If it won't behave, do it differently. More cheat. So we'll go into our effects. Use a Gaussian blur. Set our radius, and you'll notice as you go up, it's doing it all live for you. So you want it so that you can't see your corners of your logo. And then we can go ta-da. Now, because we're going to print this, you don't have to convert your text to curves, but if you're going to resize it, it's probably easier to do that. So what I will do is go to layer, convert to curves, and layer, convert to curves. Now if you think you're going to want to edit this at some point in the future, you know, if you decide you're going to change your name, then keep a separate copy with editable text. And I'm just going to take this one and I'm going to shrink it. too over optimistic there, we're shrinking. And I did say I was just going to quickly sort out the apostrophe, so I was just zoom right in. And we can fill it with the same red, like so. And if you think it looks just a bit sharp, we can use the corner rounder tool and let the curves. Are we all okay so far?
I think so. Nobody's complaining, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not any comments.
That's just shifted up a bit, but that's okay. I'll just shift it down there a bit.
So I don't keep an eye on comments, but there aren't any at the moment. So.
Okay. If you do have any questions, please do speak up. Don't try and struggle. So with our side panels, we can go for a similar kind of effect if you want to, or we can just go and do a plain colour. Take that. Okay. And we can even take a copy and we can stick it on the side of our box. And inside we'll just put the cut layer back on and save. Once you have that all done, then it's time to do the registration marks, and then it will be time to export. So we've got about half an hour left to go. So I will show you registration marks very quickly. You want to make sure that these are within your printable area, because obviously if you don't print them you can't use them. So the easiest way to do a registration mark is we're going to apply a stroke to it. Put it in our registration mark group. And you want to get the right balance between having it thin enough to be accurate but also bold enough that you can see it on a background scan. So you'll notice I go for a longer length registration mark. And I'll pop one down here. You only really need 3 max. And now we can take those, copy, go into registration now on your next page, paste, go up to your top artboard, do a new layer, registration, and paste into that. So we now have registration marks on each page. So far so good? Okay. If you were then going to send this to apprentice to print for you. What you want to do is you want to turn off all your cut layers. Okay, so you now have no lines on your artwork. Okay, so at this point, if you're printing it at home, go to File, Print, or if you're going to send it to a printer, you can go to File, Export, PDF, 300 DPI, and you can do whole document and export. And we'll go back to our Cupcake file and we can go print PDF. Okay. And likewise, instead you could go to print and print your layers. Ignore that, it's just being dense. So, then when we've done our print export, we're going to turn off our print layers and just have our cut layers and our registration layers. And if you find that bits have gone in the wrong place, you can just quickly pop them in there. And turn your cut layer back on. So basically, all you should be able to see at this point are your cut lines and your registration marks. Okay, this process takes a little bit longer because we're going to go to export, SVG, 96, and instead of doing whole document, we're going to do each one individually. And we'll go don't export layers hidden. Okay, and go to export, and we're going to go cut board 1. Export 96, artboard 2, don't export layers, cut board 2. So cut board 3. Okay. So we're going to open. Just check. Yep, they're all okay. So you now have your document that you've set up, your printed PDF ready to send away to your printers, and you have your 3 cut files that are ready to go into Canvas. Okay. So your challenge before 2 o'clock is to set up your own box, and you can do something simpler, so you don't have to do a really complicated box. Just so that you have something that you have a separate print layer and a cut layer, and you do your export. Okay. If you do have any questions or any problems in the meantime, do get in touch, as we will be about. And we'll reconvene at 2 o'clock when Ian is going to print the files, cut the files and assemble them. Aren't you, darling?
Hopefully. Matty will be on hand though if I go completely
Wrong.
peaked on. Which, given my last couple of streams, could very well happen. So we'll see how it goes.
Bless. So, any last minute questions before we go? No? We'll wait a little bit longer, just in case. But you don't have to do an exact box like this, but as long as it's a box and you've used bleeds and you've printed the file without the cut lines, we'll be happy.
No, all good.
Oh good, okay. We'll call it a day at that until 2 o'clock then.
Yeah, don't forget Pete at 12:30 and Chocolate Baroque at 1:30.
Yeah.
She's doing
And you're
coloring
missing
today.
Lou at the moment.
Yeah, and Lou's just started at 12, so you can always catch up with her later. And yes, we'll see you back hopefully at 2 o'clock for more fun and games with me.